Janshalakhya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaur Premanande Hare Hare Bol. Welcome to our Friday evening Bhagavad-gita class. And which words are we going to do today? Who remembers? Anybody wants to make a guess? How will you find out? Who all attended last Friday?
7.30, Mataji.
730.
Yes, Mataji. We did
Last one,
7.29.
last one.
Yeah, 29.
All right.
We did yesterday.
Okay. So let me bring up the verse for today and we will get started from there. Okay, where are you? 7.30. Here you are. 7.30 it is, and I'm going to start sharing the screen now, and we get going here. What is so special about 7.30? Vaishnavas? What is so special?
Entama?
I'm going to make.
What is so special about 7.30? Anybody would like to guess? Did you all go on mute? Are you not able to unmute yourself? Is that the case? Somebody needs to type and tell me. Allow participants to unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself. We are not on mute. What is so special about 7.30?
Though he says those full,
It's a
those
very
in full
easy.
conscious.
It's a very easy question. I won't ask you anything about the verse.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. This is the last verse of the chapter.
There you go for 500 points. That is what you should be knowing, right? You're reading.
Oh, this is last one. But I thought you're asking about purport.
No, I won't ask you about purport till we read it.
Okay.
Right? Why would I ask you?
This is the last one, Mataji.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you should be enthusiastic about the scripture, enthusiastic about what you're reading. Don't come into the class just like that, right? You should know where you're going, right? Because as Vaisheshika Prabhu says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road is going to take you there. Do you understand what a strong statement he makes? What does it mean when we say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there?
Any road will lead there?
Yep.
That's a good
When you
thing.
don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So if you're not able to comprehend that, let's look at the opposite. If you know where you're going, then what do?
If we know where we're going, we go there.
How do you go there?
We have the directions and we can reach there faster.
Right. So first
We
thing,
need the
when you
map.
come, you need the map. You need to be on the right road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you know where you're going, then you will find out what is the road to go there. But if you don't know where you're going, then you can take any road, right? Because you don't know where you're going. Right? So you have to be careful when you're reading Bhagavad-gita. What am I doing? Why am I coming to these Friday classes? Why do you spend 1 hour in the evening for me or morning for some of you? Why do I do that? Right? So as we
Okay.
every Friday, you should try to assimilate what is there. And then, so there is Shravanam. Shravanam is where you hear, which is the most important part in a class, is you hear, right? And then after you do the Shravanam, which is hearing from the ears, you also are supposed to go and do Smaranam. Smaranam is that after whatever you've learned in the class, you go back and think about it. Now, how do we think about it? We have got such small, short memories, right? So then we have to go back and revise, right? And you will be amazed at how much you will retain. If you get into this habit that you attend the class on Friday and then you go back and open the Bhagavad-gita to the same chapter that we did, right? And the same verse that we did, and read it. And then think of what all were discussed in the class, then it'll get etched in your memory. Otherwise, it will be gone, right? It is easy come, easy go, right? So there's a method in which we read the scriptures, right? We deliberate on it, we think about it, because only when you start thinking about it, then more questions will come to you. Only when you start thinking about it will things become more clear to you, right? You'll be able to make the connection. So you have to remember, chapter 7 has got 30 verses in it, okay? And this is the last verse. So what did we read in these 30 verses? Like we have been here for 30 weeks for sure, right? In chapter 7. So anything you remember from chapter 7, that'll make it worthwhile. The fact that you attended classes on Friday. Any one thing that strikes your mind about. Mataji, yeah, tell me.
I remember
Knowledge
very
of-
distinctively.
She's answering and one person at a time only. Okay, Mata Sangini, just be mindful. Yeah.
Okay. What I remember is earlier on in this chapter, he was talking about the elements, how he is in everything, and especially the taste of water. Really, when you were explaining, it really like, wow, he is the taste of water. So at that time, like it was being Krishna conscious when you were explaining, it was very deep. You can just if you remember everything and think of Krishna, somehow the taste of water, when he says he's the taste of water.
And so Krishna has made so much facilities, right? So then
Yeah.
you mentioned that we talked about the elements, right? And you
Yeah.
might have seen that I'm repeating the chapter over and over again, right? And by repetition, things sink in. So you mentioned that he talks about the elements, right? So what are the elements he mentions?
Fire, water,
Mm-hmm.
air,
Mm-hmm.
earth, space.
Right. So when you are reciting the objects or the elements, one nice way of doing it is to start either with the most subtle and go all the way up to gross, or you start from the gross and go up all the way up to the subtle. That way it will be easy for you as you are mentally in your mind, you're picturing, like if you start from gross, then you'll be picturing what is the next subtle element, what is more subtle than this one, what is more subtle than, right? So and what is the verse? Does anybody remember? It starts with a bha. The verse that talks about the 5 elements. Actually, 8 in that verse. Bhumi.
Bhumirapo analo vayu kammano buddhiryapacha. Is that right, Mataji?
Yes. So it starts
Ahankaram iti yame vinna pratirashtita.
Ashtadasa. There are 8, right? He talks about. So there is Bhumi. So he starts
Bhumi,
with Bhumi. What is earth?
apo,
Right? Bhumi. And then,
analo,
hold on. So Bhumi is earth. Apo is,
apo is
Apo?
water.
Water, right?
Yeah.
Anala.
Analo,
What is Anal?
Air.
Anal is fire.
fire.
Bhumi, Apo, Analo.
Vayu is air. Vayu is air.
Right. And then
Come.
Kham is space. And then Mano is mind.
Mind.
Kham,
Buddhi
Mano,
is buddhi.
Buddhi is intelligence.
Buddhi.
Intelligence. No buddhir evacha. Ahankara.
Yes. Ahankar.
False ego is the thief. So as you see, he is listing, Krishna is listing them from the most gross going all the way to the subtle. Earth is very gross, right? Then less gross than earth is water. Less gross than water is fire.
Fire.
Gross than fire is air. Because fire
Air.
you can still see. You can still see the flame, but air you cannot see because it's more subtle, right? Then space, then mind, then intelligence. And one thing to remember about controlling them. So it's easier to control something gross. And the more subtle an item becomes, it's much more difficult to control that. Okay? So that is why mind comes much later in this hierarchy of being more and more subtle. So you can control your body, you can do exercise, the gross body you can control, but controlling a mind, much more difficult because it's very, very subtle. So you see, Krishna has listed them in that particular order. So as you go back to the Bhagavad-gita, read it again and again, try to look for these nuances also, right? Rather than just that it is a list. And it's also an easy way for you to remember, right? Remember what is coming next. And you don't have to, just start thinking about it and the next one will come automatically. So, Bhumi, Apo, Analo, Vayu, Kham, Mano, Buddhi,
Devacha ahankara iti yame vinna
so
pratirashtita.
these were the elements he talks about, right? What are the other elements? Did you really talk about any other elements other than these? So he talks about these. Then what else he says? He talks about these 8 elements.
Paramatma, knowledge,
We are talking about elements.
elements. Okay.
So then energy, right? So he talked about Bhinna Prakriti Ashtadasi. He talks about these 8 energies that are his. Right? Then immediately in the very next verse, he says, Aparayam itastanva Prakriti vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhavo yayedam dharyate jagat. So he said, but apart from this and away from these 8 energies is the spiritual energy, is the soul, is the jiva. And what is the jiva doing in this material world, which is made up of 8 elements? What does the jiva do? Tries to exploit it, tries to enjoy it. So in which ways do you think we exploit the 8 material energies in our lives?
We are using the earth for houses and everything. We are digging it.
Okay.
And farms also. We are cutting the trees and then we are misusing, not for cutting the trees, and we are building the houses. Mostly human beings wants to live. And we're misusing the earth, I think.
How does mankind exploit water?
Water, they're going inside the water and getting the oil from water and going deeper and
good.
Going
What else?
inside.
How else do they exploit water? Anything else they do to the water? Other than just getting oil out of it?
Drink it.
Anybody in the class?
So pollution in the water is also
Pollution in the water is the biggest exploitation, right?
Yeah.
And then when we talk about exploiting earth, I want you to start extrapolating and expanding your thinking process, right? So when we say bhumi, how are you exploiting bhumi? So yes, we think about that we are exploiting the earth, we are drilling, and we are throwing gunk on this, waste and all that, right? But in addition to that, you also see that how you are exploiting other forms from earth, right? Like animals. What are we doing to animals? Especially in Kali
We are
Yuga.
destroying their habitat.
We are destroying their habitat. Okay, that's one thing we are doing to them. Imagine
And
what
we are
happens.
slaughtering them, shooting
Yeah.
for
Just imagine what happens
entertainment.
if you imagine that what happens if somebody comes and demolishes where you stay. How are we going to like it, right? But we do
We
that to
won't like it.
animals all the time, right? And then you said slaughtering. How bad is that, right?
Slaughtering for
So he
food
says
is
that
very bad.
yeah, so they exploit. Okay, so good. So that was good reflection. What else did we talk about in this chapter? So then you also said a taste of water. Yeah. What else was talked about? Chapter 7.
Air pollution also, because of all these things. Air also polluted.
What else was talked about in this chapter?
This chapter actually it's like
You can open up your chapter and read from the
knowledge
translation.
of the
And then tell me.
absolute.
Yeah, that's a very vague reply. Yeah.
Man in
Give me
distress,
something
the
more substantial.
inquisitive man.
Give
The
me
man
something more
wants the
substantial.
material necessities. Knowledge of
You don't,
the
you don't just read the book and recite from here. You read it quietly and then comprehend it and then summarize it and tell me.
okay.
Right? If you're reciting, then we can all sit here and recite for half an hour, all the 30 verses, then we are done. No. When you read it, you also have to comprehend it. And only when you comprehend something, then you are able to summarize it. It's very difficult to summarize something which you don't understand. Is that right? Come on, class, work with me. Come out of mute.
Understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes. Very vague answer.
It is said that it was talking about the unintelligent men who think he is not manifest.
The Mudhas.
Yeah.
Okay.
They think he's impersonal.
Okay. Okay.
And is that they don't, due to their knowledge, which is limited, they do not exactly know him, the real him.
They do not know the real him. Okay. And then what else? Anything else? So you told me that he talked about the 5 elements, which is good. So now you remember 5 elements, right? And 8, they added 3 more subtle. You talked about that. We talked about that beyond these 8, there are other, subtle spiritual elements as well. We talked about that. You also talked about the taste of water. Then you talked about people who are unintelligent, don't understand him. What other kinds of people were discussed? And I'll give you a hint. How many? Maybe you'll get the hint. He talks about 4 types of devotees, right? 4 type of people who approach Krishna.
Four type of people.
Mataji, we got to,
Chatur is my
Sutapa, tell me.
yeah, the people who are in distress, those who are inquisitive,
distressed, inquisitive. What else? What other types of people you have seen around you going to God?
They want something from
Krishna describes four types
You
of
want
people
something.
who seek him, the
Okay.
four who do not. Some seek him, some do not.
What about the four? What about the four who seek him? We are talking about the four that seek
Who
him.
seek him.
So let's continue that thought. Yeah. So we heard so far that those who are in distress, and then
Yes,
those who
those
are inquisitive,
on path of devotion.
and what was the third that the people said?
Whoever has the knowledge of Brahman,
The Jnani.
Jnani,
Okay.
and
Jigyasu.
Jigyasu, the inquisitive, right? Okay. Then it also talked about people not coming to Krishna, right? So there are people who don't come to Krishna. These are who come to Krishna, right? Then there are some who don't come to Krishna. So where do they go if they don't go to Krishna?
They go
He
to
talks about it.
demigods. They are impersonalists.
They are impersonalist. Oh, and I heard demigod. So impersonalist will just think that Krishna doesn't have a personality, but he's still going to Krishna.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So I'm talking about not going to Krishna. Then where do they go? If they don't go to Krishna, where do you go?
They go to the demigods for their desires to be fulfilled.
For their desires to be fulfilled? Okay. Right. And then what did Krishna say about this thing? People
in
going
in that kind of situation and hearing and glorifying Supreme Lord.
No. We are talking about demigods. People who go to demigods. And the question is, what does Krishna talk about people going to demigod? What does he say?
Those who go to demigods, their desire will be fulfilled, but
Okay.
that may not be good for them.
That may not be good for them. Right. In the verses, however, what does Krishna say about people who have a desire or have a faith in the demigods? What does Krishna do? What does he do to that faith?
He establishes their faith.
He establishes it?
Yeah, in the demigods, so that they have they carry on doing the their faith develops in them, and at least they are doing they are on the not the correct path, but they are at least doing bhakti.
Right. So he said he strengthens their faith, right? Okay.
Yes, strengthens their faith.
What else does he say? That is good. What else? One more thing he says,
But
right?
it is indirect. It's not the right way. It is the indirect way, and ultimately, I only give everything to.
I only give everything. Yeah, that's the
Yes.
important point. That's an important point to note there, right? Right? Okay. What else does he say in this chapter?
Faith, that faith is called Dhrida-vrata.
And what phase is that? How does one become Dhrida-vrata?
By glorifying the Lord in pure devotional service.
Okay.
So if he does like that, so all his objectives will be fulfilled. So that is Dhrida-vrata, I think.
Dhrida-vrata is when your desires are fulfilled?
That is
What do you think is the Dhrida-vrata?
determined faith. Faith is called Dhrida-vrata.
Yes. And why does their state become Dhrida-vrata? How do you reach that stage?
So Krishna consciousness.
And how do you reach Krishna consciousness?
We do that hearing the pleasure in such situation, pleasure in hearing and glorifying Krishna.
Right. In this particular verse, he also talks about that people who have acted piously. Yesham to antagatam pupam jananam punyakarmanam. Remember? Ye dvandva moha nirmukta. So they are free from the dualities, right? Then they take shelter. So there is a gradual process, right? So based on the answers that you have given on what you have studied in chapter 7 of the Bhagavad-gita, actually this whole chapter can be divided into 3 sections. So in the beginning, you all answered from your memory that talked about 5 elements, right? And then Mother Sangini Mati said, taste of water. And it was very nice for me to remember that I can do that from taste of water, right? And then he also says in verse 7, Sutre Mani Gana Eva. And Daivi Esha Gunamai Mama Maya Dvatya.
Yeah.
We talked about that, right? Famous verse. So he is telling that how by himself and through his external energies, he is pervading this whole material world that has been created, right? He tells that to you. And then he comes to that Chaturvida Bhajante Mam Jana Sukritana Arjuna and all those, those who are Mudas and how to do it, right? So then what he's talking about that everybody and whatever somebody is doing, right? In some way or the other, they are connected to Krishna, right? For example, he said those who go to the demigods, it is I who strengthen it. Then they ask for something, it is I who give him, right? So that connection is there, they might not see the connection, right? So he's talking about how you relate with, so Krishna is available everywhere, but how do people relate to him? So some will be fine, they are go to God. Some are defying it. And that's why, they are the atheists who do not believe in God. Right? So there are so many, right? Right? Some will do some stuff.
Another point, you say, Bijam Mam Sarvabhutanam, he is the Bij, he is the seed giving father.
The seed giving father, right? And then the third part where he's talking now about that people have to surrender. And if you want to understand Krishna, then the surrender element he brought, right? And then to be able to surrender, there has to be some purification in our mind, purification of our consciousness has to be there, right? So yesham to antagata prapam. Once that, until and unless that purification is not there, the drivrata will not come, right? And drivrata also means drivrata in reading the Bhagavad-gita. Dhrida. I read it, dhrida. I go back and read it again, right? Dhrida. That is dhrita. And he's saying, why will that dhrita not come? Because you have other thoughts, you have got other desires. As long as you have those other desires, you will not be able to do that, right? It doesn't come. It will not come, right? So slowly we have to get into that stage of desirelessness. And desirelessness will come when we get away from this dvanda, the two-ness. This is good, this is bad, I want the good. When you start seeing that good and bad are the same, then it doesn't matter, right? And then, and especially I was just thinking that in the context of Krishna, when we say Krishna is the absolute, right? And we say when Krishna is the absolute, then good and bad doesn't have any difference. And what that means is that, when Krishna does any good to us, that is good. And when Krishna seems to be doing bad to us, that is also good for us, right? So when we go through ups and downs in life, we go through troubles in life, ultimately there is spiritual progress that is happening. And what is the spiritual progress that is happening? Is that we will slowly, when you get in trouble, you will slowly get detached with matter. So troubles bring detachment in an imperceptible way. You might not know it, you might not declare it, but suddenly it'll happen. Right? For example, I used to give this example to you a long time ago that one of our neighbors, he had a 10-year-old boy and he would only drink sweetened water. So not like taking a glass of water and just drinking it. He was like, add sugar to it. If you didn't add sugar to it, he would cry. I think I was not 10. I think he was much younger than that. But anyway, add sugar to it and he'd cry. So one day his father said, okay, now sit down here, drink one glass. He drank it. He said, you want one more glass? He said, yes, one more. And then he threw up everything after 6 or 7 glasses. And then his father said, you want one more? He said, no. and after that he never drank. So that trauma of throwing up and going through that miserable condition, made him detached from sweetened water. He didn't drink it. So that's why when you see that miseries are coming our way, although it's very difficult to handle it, we need to start looking at Krishna's hand in it and looking at what Krishna has in his mind, that this is going to be good for me. Like that. Right? So, having said that, so what do you think about the recap?
Very nice.
Okay, can somebody tell us what we recapped? Can somebody recap what we talked now, while it is still fresh in your mind?
This recap helped me because you said it did take 30 weeks to cover each of the verse. So it's such a long time ago, and it's easy to know what we covered. And I actually missed quite a few verses. So it's a very good revision for me. And you can see the whole chapter in one summary. You said it was divided in three parts: elements, and then
How Krishna is everywhere.
Yeah, how he's everywhere. And then the last one was surrendering, how
Okay.
purification of the consciousness happens
And
there.
what was in between? Anybody remember?
4 kinds of people go to Krishna,
And
and
those who don't go.
Somehow or the other, when everybody is
Connected
connected to him one way or the other.
to Krishna. Right?
Yeah.
So this is how you'll remember. And then Krishna is like Sutre Mani Ganava. He's like the thread on which all the pearls are
all the
strewn.
pearls are.
Right? So these are some of the famous, like Chaturvida Bhajante Mam is what you should remember from this verse. Right? Bhume Apo Analo Vayu, the energies, you should remember that. Right? Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karanam. You should remember that one, how you become the Rata. Right? Devi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Madatya. Right? That you should remember. So Manusharam Sahisasu, right? Out of thousands of men, right? Those verses are also important. These are the important verses from chapter 7. Okay? Now, chapter 8. Yeah. From this chapter 7, I mentioned last time something very important. And let's look at the verse from last time, since we are in the mood of doing a recap, right? So, let's see. Let's bring up 7.29. Jaram marana mokshaya mamashritya yatanti ye te brahma tad viduḥ kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakilam. So, intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from what? 4 problems of life we talked about, right? From old age, death, take refuge in me in devotional service. They're actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities, right? So here in this verse, I had pointed out that Krishna has brought in words like Brahma, Adhyatmam, Karma, right? And I had said that he just is bringing in new words and difficult words in his narration to Arjuna, which is actually happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, right? So what was the reason Krishna brought these words? He talked about that last time.
What is that, Mataji? Say it again.
So Krishna brought these words, right? Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma, in this verse. What was the reason he brought these words into?
Because Arjuna doesn't want to work in the battlefield. Isn't that
Explained a particular reason why. Is that a hand I see raised, Varshana Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. He was not keen to pick up his.
That's what Vindhyavali is also saying, but I'm not accepting that answer.
So Krishna told him that you don't have to worry because
No, we are not taking that answer. That he told many chapters ago. In chapter 7 here, why did he talk about
talked
that?
about devotional service, Mataji.
No, we talked about why Krishna is bringing these words.
Brahman, and what else he said, Mataji? Brahman?
Yeah, look at the words, go look at the words, open the book, look at the words. Then you'll remember, right?
Oh, okay. I'll get it. Akhilam.
Some word that
Adhyatma,
is-
transcendental.
Yeah, Adhyatma.
And then karma also,
Karma,
activities.
right? Correct, right. Yeah. So we had spent some time. Okay. I'll use the word and then you'll remember. Teaching technique.
Huh? Teaching techniques.
What did I talk about teaching techniques last week? Those who were present last week. Nothing? The teaching technique that I talked about was that Krishna is trying to check and see whether Arjuna is attentive, which is what I'm doing today to all of you. How much attentive are you? And how much you go back and read
That's
it?
true.
How much drivrata are you, right? So I talked about a teaching technique where a teacher will use some words and not explain them because he's waiting to see is the student attentive enough that he will stand up and ask the question. If the student is not asking the question, that means student is not listening. Right? That was a teaching technique. Right? Like the technique I used today. What was the technique I used today to teach you something which was painful?
Need to be more attentive.
What was the technique I used?
And you told that we should go back and study again. Once you teach the shloka, we should go back and go through the whole thing, and then we will remember. It will get etched in us.
Those were instructions that I gave, right? But what was the
Yeah.
technique that I used to make you familiar with chapter 7? What is that technique?
You asked us to see what we remembered.
Recap. Yeah. So
Yeah,
one
recap,
technique
yeah.
is to
Recap. Yeah.
through the process of recap, you will relearn, right? Recap is to re means to do again. Capture in your mind. So recap. That was one technique, right? To teach you something. The second technique which Krishna is using over here, he's going to teach him, but he first wants to know whether he's attentive or not. So one way he could have said, well, okay, let me explain to you what is adhyatmic. Now, tachrunu, now listen, Arjuna, he could have done that also, right? But he didn't do that. In this verse, he just used these words, right? Without explaining it to them, because he's checking to see whether Arjuna is attentive, listening or not. Because remember, it's war, battlefield, right? His mind can get distracted. He's already agitated, or at least was agitated. So where he is, right? So that's why he doesn't tell. Okay. Now, that technique is going to continue in today's verse also, which is the last verse of chapter 7 of Bhagavad-gita.
30.
And number 30. Now everybody's going to remember. I will ask you next time. Okay. Sādhibhūtādhidaivaṁ sādhiyajñam cha ye viduḥ prayāṇa-kāle pīchamam te vidur yukta-cetasaḥ. So sa-adhibhūta and the governing principle of the material manifestation. And we talked about the material manifestation. It is made up of 8 elements. What are those 8 elements of material manifestations?
Mataji, 5 which we
Is
just
that Bhumirapunalo?
And?
Kammano Buddhirevacha.
Correct. So those are the
Ahankaram.
material. Adhidaivam, governing all the demigods. Ma
Okay.
is me. Sa-adhiyajñam, and the governing all sacrifices. Cha also, ye those who viduḥ know prayāṇa of death kale at the time, api even cha and ma me te de viduḥ no, yukta-cetasaḥ, their minds engaged in me. Okay, so now they are saying, the explanation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai is, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Now you have to remember that Krishna did not speak in such an elaborate manner to him, to Arjuna, right? He's just speaking Sanskrit again, and he's throwing some more words into it, right? Some more words. And again, the idea is that Arjun should ask those questions. And the words that he's now introducing. So 3 words that he introduced in the previous verse, right? In BG 4.29. And I want you to remember so that you have a nice connection there. So again, repeating here, 7.29. The words that he has used is Brahma, Adhyatma, and Karma. Okay, so these 3 words are there, and now here he's bringing in more. Adhidaivam, adhibhūta, adhidaivam, adhiyajñam, and then he's also talking about remembering somebody at the prayāṇa-kāle, at the time of death. So he is remembering all that, okay? He's using those words so that Arjun should ask those questions. Because Arjun didn't have the benefit of a Srila Prabhupada right next to him, who's doing all the translation, right? So he's kind of on his own. Okay, so what were now we talked about the extra words that he has introduced. So can you tell me what were the words that he has introduced from what you heard? You're welcome to open 7.29, 7.30 and give me those words.
Adhibhūtam, adhidaivam, and sādhiyajñam. Sādhiyajñam, I don't know what you heard. Adhibhūtam, adhidaivam. Those words we did.
Karma.
Karma, correct.
Adhyatma.
Adhyatmam, correct. Right? So Krishna is actually checking to see if Arjuna is being attentive. Do you think Arjuna is attentive? From
Yes.
what you know about Arjuna? Do you think it was? Huh?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, Mother.
Yes.
नंदा झाड़ू और ये इधर सब पड़ा है.
Okay, if you are talking, then please mute yourself.
So
Okay, you got the words? So you think that Arjun was attentive?
Yes, Mother.
Okay, so let's go to chapter 8. Arjuna vacha, kim tadbhram, kim adhyatmam, kim karma purushottama, adhibhūtam cha kim proktam, adhidaivam kid uchyate, adhiyajña katham kotra, dehesmin madhusudana, prayāṇa-kāle cha katham gyeyosi niyatatmavihi. So, what verses has Arjuna asked? He's asking question, right? Kim means he's asking what. So, what are the words that you saw from previous chapter 7 that Arjuna is not?
adhyatmam.
Okay, adhyatma.
Adhibhūtam.
Kim karma. Karma.
Kim
Karma
karma.
is one. So,
Brahma.
3.
Adhibhūtam, adhidaivam.
Adhidaivam is 4. Okay. Then anything from next verse?
Sādhiyajñam.
Adhiyajñam. And then?
Prayāṇa-kāle.
prayāṇa-kāle chakatham. Yeah, chakatham, right? Gyeyosi niyatatmavihi. And then if I bring up the translation to see what Arjuna is asking, as soon as my mouse will allow me to move, which it hesitates to do. Okay. So I'm bringing in the translation also. And what does he ask? Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. And then, who is the Lord of sacrifice? How does he live in this body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So you see, all those difficult words that Krishna has brought, Arjuna is immediately asked in the next 2 verses in the next chapter. So that is the connection between chapter 7 and chapter 8. And in Bhagavad-gita, the chapters are connected, right? So you have to remember also the connection and why. Like if you just pick up chapter 8 and start reading, And you say, Arjuna is asking, Kim tadbhram kim adhyatman? Oh, why is he asking that? Oh, well, because Krishna enticed him to ask those questions by using those words in the previous verse. Right? And then one of the most important thing which all of you moan and groan about every day and in every class, prayāṇa-kāle ca katham gyeyosi niyatatmabhi, is saying, how does one remember you at the time of death? Is that a good question or not?
Very good question.
By your good deeds.
Isn't it? Yeah. And who else do you think was talking about something similar?
Who else was talking about?
Same thing, something similar. Arjuna is asking, right? How does one remember you at the time of death? Somebody else was talking something about around time of death. From the scriptures that you have.
That how much we have faith in Krishna, and how much we have moved towards Krishna emotionally by prayers or by faith.
So now go further, connect it to time of death. That is what my question was, that how do we...
Okay.
Yeah, he's talking about that, and I'm just saying that there are other places also, a similar thing was asked about, something around time of death.
Arjuna asked that, Bhishma.
Second chapter.
What did Arjuna ask Bhishma?
No. Is that Bhishma? Bhishma Pitamaha asked, at the time of death, he wants to... I don't know how to explain, Mataji.
It is very simple. What did Bhishma want? You just have to tell us that.
He wanted to Krishna to say the Bhagavad-gita. Huh? Bhishma Pitamaha. He wanted to see
something related to time of death. Okay. I will give you some hints. Okay. It is related to a king.
What did you say, Mataji?
It's related to a king. I will give you another hint. The king was the emperor of the whole world.
Parikshit.
Correct, for 500 points. And what did Parikshit ask?
He asked that, at the time of death, what is it?
What should I do in these? Because I'm left only with 7 days. What should I do in these 7 days?
How will I remember?
Did he ask that question directed to himself? Was he saying, I have 7 days left to do, tell me what I should do? Or what was his general question?
Then when
time of death, what a person will hear or chant or remember or worship is what should renounce. Is it something?
Yes, Sukadeva Goswami.
What did he ask?
Yes, he asked Sut Goswami, Mataji, the 6 questions. In that question, he asked.
Did he ask Sut Goswami or did he ask Sukadeva Goswami?
Sukadeva Goswami.
Let's get the Goswamis right.
Sukadeva Goswami. He asked Sukadeva Goswami.
Okay.
That, at the time of death, what should a person do?
What is the duty of a man about to die, right? And he did not ask the question just of Shukdev Goswami. He had asked that question first to everybody who was assembled.
Everybody, all the rishis.
And nobody answered. And then Shukdev Goswami walked in, and then Shukdev sat down, and then he answered, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Right? That's another. So try to make these connections in your head. When you see something here in the Bhagavad-gita, also go and see that, how it relates to anything else that you have read someplace else, right? So here also he's talking about time of death. Okay, what other things does Krishna talk elsewhere in Bhagavad-gita about time of death? You all know it. That's why I'm asking you. Time of death?
Whatever you think at the time of death, you will attain that body.
Correct. Yam yam
Vapi smarna bhava.
tajyate kalevaram. Tam tam evati konteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. Right? So we have to remember that. No? And ante
Who
Narayan.
did he say, Mataji?
Antakale jamana.
Sorry?
Who did he say that? Kalevaram.
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajyat ante kalevaram. Somebody tell me. In which scripture is this verse?
In which?
Shastra. In which book?
Yam Kalevar.
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajyat ante kalevaram tam tam evati konteya sada tadbhava bhav.
It's in Bhagavad-gita, Mataji.
It's in Bhagavad-gita, exactly. It's going to
Yeah.
come in the very
Kaunteya.
It's going to come in the next chapter. It's a Konteya is a giveaway that it's from the Bhagavad, likely, very likely from the
Mataji, memory is going, Mataji.
I think it's in the 8th chapter, 5th shloka.
6. Yeah, quite close.
5th
Yeah.
or 6th, I don't.
Yeah. So what is the thing? The problem here is that when we are here in this material body, as the soul that Krishna talks about in the 7th chapter, after describing the inferior material energy, Bhumi apo analo vayu kham mano buddhir evacha ahankara ityame. Right? After the he said, apareham itastanve. But transcendental to all this is the soul. But what is the soul doing? Exploiting this material world. So that's what the people are thinking about. They're not thinking about the main problem in life, and that is death. They don't do that. Right? And then what they will do is that they will try to surround themselves with soldiers. Right? Protection. For example, you have a home, so you build a fence around it. So that fence becomes your soldier, right? To prevent others from coming. Similarly, you have different kinds of soldiers, bank balance, life insurance. These are all soldiers that we have. But you know what? These soldiers are all fallible soldiers. They can fall down. Right? You can build a fence around your house and a truck can just pass through it and come into and hit you in the room, in the house. So they can fall down. Similarly, banks can get bankrupt. Life insurance companies can go bankrupt. A person can withdraw all the money from through a digital fraud. But we think that if I have money, I'll be able to conquer death. If I've got a son, then my death is easy because my son will be there. But the son can leave before you do. Right? So these are fallible soldiers. They're fallible soldiers. And they do not see their inevitable destruction that is coming their way. They just don't see it. They're too much immersed in, their family. My family will take care of it. I've got, money. I've got this. I've got that, right? So here is saying, prayāṇa-kāle chakatam yeosi kyamiyam atmabhihi. How do I remember people? How can a person remember you at the time of death, right? So in our Bhagavatam, and I'm going to bring up that verse here. In the Bhagavatam, there is a very nice verse spoken by Supreme Goswami. Tasmad bharata sarvatma bhagwan ishvaro hari. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha smartavyasche chatabhayam. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Right? So one of the miseries is death. So if you spend your life and want to be free from that misery and all other miseries, what are the 3 things you should do?
Glorify and remember the personality of Godhead. Hear and glorify.
Here, glorify and remember.
Remember,
Here, glorify, and
remember personality of Godhead.
Here, glorify, and remember, right? And how one way that we're doing-
Shravanam, Kirtanam. Is that the Mataji?
Yes,
Shravanam,
what do you remember?
Kirtanam.
What do you remember?
Huh?
Smaranam, right?
Smaranam.
Right.
Shravanam,
So-
Kirtanam, Smaranam.
Yeah, so you cannot
Vandanam.
remember. Yeah, you cannot remember. You cannot remember unless you hear, right? And that is why one of the things that you're doing is you are hearing, hopefully, the Bhagavad-gita today. And then
Forgetting.
and then you have to glorify whatever nice things that you heard about Krishna. You can go and glorify and tell others.
Krishna says that I will give you intelligence, I will give you remembrance, I will give you forgetfulness too. That's what I remember all the time, Mataji. He's giving forgetfulness to me.
Yeah, focus on the good thing, that he also gives you remembrance, right? He has given you the remembrance to remember that verse and to quote it, right? So always learn to look at the positive aspects of it.
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam.
Smaranam, Bandhanam, Pada Shravanam, Dasyam, Sakyam,
Let's do the first
Atmanivedanam.
Bandhanam, Dasyam.
Yeah, let's do the let's do the first three. And let's do the first.
First three are very important. Shravanam, Kirtanam,
Shrotavyam. To hear is very, very important. If we don't hear, then we don't get it. Right? Vaisheshika Prabhu was teaching the other day, right? And he said that when somebody is speaking, our mind goes elsewhere. And there is a haze, some hazy sound is coming in our ears. And then what are we doing? We know the topic being discussed. And what are we hearing? Just we're waiting for the pause when the speaker will stop speaking and we will wedge in and then we will speak. That is the urge. That's the urge. That's why they say vachu vegam.
Vachu vegam.
It's an urge. It's a force that makes us do that. Makes us speak, right? So you remember that story I tell you about a sculptor who was very afraid to die? You remember that? And so his friends said that, oh, you know what? You're such a good sculptor. So why don't you make several statues that look just like you? And when the Yamdutas are going to come, they'll be confused which one to kill and take away. So he did that. And so Yamdutas came and they were like, oh my goodness, there are 15 of the same person, Ram Dayal or whoever. So they went back 2 or 3 times, and then Yamraj said, what have you done? Where is the soul? You didn't bring the soul. So he sent them back again. Same thing, he did that. Again, he went and hid like that. So then again, they went back. So 2 or 3 times it happened. Then they told Yamraj, please tell us, this. Wow, we were so confused. So then Yamraj comes, come here, listen, I'll tell you a trick. He tells something to them in their ears. So this time they go there. And so the sculpture again goes and stands against the statue, in between the statues, completely still. And so the Yamdutas, look at all the statues and then they say, wow, what a wonderful sculpture. He has made all those statues. They look so alike. It's very difficult to decipher one from the other, right? But there is a small mistake in one of them. And the sculptor said, which one is it? There's the urge to speak. Urge to speak will lead to our death, unless we are speaking about Krishna. So on that happy note, I'm just being strict because after attending Bhagavad-gita classes for 10 years, right, or so, we should now raise our standards a little high, right? That's what I did for the Sunday classes also. Instead of just reading slokas and trying to recite it, I've also said now you should memorize it.
I agree.
You have to go let one notch.
We need to improve.
And it's small daily improvements. Small daily improvements, right? Small.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter. There's no race that I have to complete all the books that Prabhupada has written, and I want to read the book from this one and from that one and from that one. You have to stay contained. I mean, in our lifetimes, if you read the 5 books, or even read 3, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavatam, and Bhagavad-gita. If you like, you can bring in Nectar of Devotion. like that. But even if you're able to thoroughly study that, that's enough for us to go back to Godhead. Because all these other books that you see were not there earlier, and people did go back to Godhead. But Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-gita, they are with us since time immemorial, right? In which chapter does Krishna say about that? He talked about Bhagavad-gita from time immemorial.
In Bhagavad Gita, he says in
The beginning chapter.
chapter in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has said.
No, not purport.
Okay.
He talks about Bhagavad-gita being spoken many years ago, millions of years ago.
Chapter 2.
What is
Mostly
chapter 2? What is chapter 2 about? Okay, let's see what is chapter 1 about.
Vishad Yoga.
What does Vidyad Yoga mean?
Arjun Vishad Yoga.
What does Arjun Vishad Yoga mean?
Observing armies.
What does observing the army?
Observing the
First chapter.
So you are going to give me that answer? First chapter is about observing army, or are you going to give me a little bit more deeper answer?
Arjuna asked that take the chariot between both the armies, and he wants to see the armies. He wants to observe.
Okay. Then what happened?
And the second chapter,
No. Stay in chapter 1. No hurry.
Okay, he looks into armies and he says
Summary. Give me one line.
all these fathers and grandfathers and great grandfathers are there, and he doesn't want to
kill them. Right? And that was the Arjun Vishad.
Arjun Vishad.
Right? That was the dilemma.
He feels Vishadam.
Right? Vaishana Mataji, when you said Arjun Vishad, that's what you meant?
Yes, Mataji, Vishad Yoga, because he was totally confused that how can I kill my own people?
Right.
So
why is it called yoga?
He could not differentiate between the soul and the body.
Why is it called yoga? Chapter 1 doesn't talk of soul and body. Why is it called yoga? Why is it called Vishad Yoga? Why do you think? Think.
Because he was illusioned, Mataji.
No, Vishad is distressed. He was distressed. But why is it called yoga? What is the meaning of yoga?
Yoga is sambandha, connection.
What does yoga mean in Sanskrit? What does it mean?
Yoga is to connect.
Connection, right? Okay, yeah. And what is the real connection?
Connection with Krishna.
Okay, now tell me Vishad Yoga. Why are we calling it Vishad Yoga?
Because he is still thinking his grandfather's fathers are connection. He's still thinking.
That is Vishad.
That's why he's worried.
My question is why is this chapter called Vishad Yoga then? It should just be called Vishad.
Yeah, that's
Vishad. But if you're saying Arjun Vishad Yoga, where is the yoga coming from? You just now said yoga is to connect, and you said the best yoga is to connect with God.
It is written in Hindi book, it is written Vishad Yoga.
This connection to God.
The chapter is written as Arjun Vishad Yoga.
Yeah, but that is not an answer to say that it is written there. We have to explain. Madhav Sangini, are you trying to
yoga? I don't know.
Hold on, let her. Yeah, she has raised her hand. Let's follow that protocol. Yeah.
Your question was when did in which chapter?
My question, we are talking about chapter 1 only. And I'm asking this question that why is it called Vishad Yoga? Because I heard you all explain to me that Vishad means distress, and you said yoga means connection, and you also accepted that best connection is connecting to Krishna, right? So I'm asking that question. That then why is the word yoga put there? Arjun Vishad Yoga, right? That's the name.
So he
yoga of distress.
He is connected with the Vishad, with the Dukha, with the
no, but then you said the yoga is, but the yoga you said is best yoga is connected.
So he loses his strength, and I think
but the yoga is actually connected to connect with something.
So his mind
Yog is,
becomes
yog is
bewildered.
actually yog only means connection. Yog only means connecting to Krishna. That is the true meaning of the word yoga, right?
Yeah.
You can use, then you can, even an ox is connected to the cart, right? That's also yoga.
Vishal yoga is it is big, no? That is majestic. Vishal means majestic, and yoga means connection with the mind, spirit, and
Vishad doesn't mean majestic. That is Vishal. Here we are talking about Vishad.
Vishal. Okay. I was thinking Vishal.
So, because Arjun was in distress, right? He had Vishad.
So he fails in strength.
Because of his Vishad only does in next chapter he turn to Krishna and accepts him as his spiritual master.
Oh.
Because if that Vishad had not come, he wouldn't have connected with
He
Krishna.
was connected.
It was his friend driving the chariot. So sometimes you see, distress is there, it brings you connection. And that's why I was saying that Krishna is absolute. In the connection with Krishna, the distress that Arjuna had was the best thing that happened to him. And we spend our whole life trying to avoid distress, right? Because it's uncomfortable. But what I'm trying to say here is that in our life, distress will come. For example, for the last 1 hour, 10 minutes, I have put you in so much of distress. I'm asking you questions, right? But then you are digging, I'm forcing you to dig deeper, right? There are only 18 chapters of Bhagavad-gita and we have 100 years to live. We will be bored and then you want that book and that book and that book, right? Indiscriminately, we'll read. But now we have to dig. You don't have to go wider. You have to go deeper. Now I had told you about the yatra that I go to every year, right? And we will go to same places every year. Same temples we go every year. So what's the fun here? I went and saw Gambhira. What's there? First year you see Gambhira. Next year you understand it more. Next year you understand it more. So you build your relationship more and more, rather than, just flitting from one temple to another temple. So similarly, we should not flit from one book to another book. We should stay focused on the book that Prabhupada has recommended and go deeper and deeper, right? If somebody is not able to answer that question, you're distributing books and somebody asks you that question, why is it called Vishad Yoga?
Yes, Mataji. It means that I was just thinking it's when any distress comes in our life, actually, it connects us to Krishna. So that is
the bigger the distress, the bigger the connection.
Yes.
Small distress and all you can get away with money or medicine or something like that. But bigger distresses, people really turn to Krishna. And you see that happening in the temple, right? So-called atheists, they turn and then they come like that, right? So that is chapter 1 of Bhagavad-gita, right? So he was in Vishad Yoga. So my question here was that find out in which chapter, and I will leave that as a question for you because we are over time. Leave that as a question for you. Find out in which chapter of Bhagavad-gita does Krishna talk about the fact that he had discussed Bhagavad-gita many, many years ago. Okay? Take that as a homework.
Mataji, what did you say? Say it again, please.
Okay, let me test and see who else is listening.
Please, I couldn't hear you, Mataji.
That's okay. Let somebody else repeat it for you. Yeah, go ahead. Marshana Mataji is raising her hand. Okay,
yes,
just repeat the homework.
You asked the question that in which chapter of Bhagavad-gita Krishna spoke about that he spoke many times about Bhagavad-gita.
Many times about Bhagavad-gita?
Yeah.
Okay, Madhav Sangini Mataji.
Is it homework or can I give another answer?
It's a homework.
Okay.
And you can give the answer in the homework.
Oh, okay.
But don't give it here.
Oh, okay.
Go there, find out the verse, paste that work in the WhatsApp group. And
okay.
And the verse in Sanskrit, the transliteration, and then the translation also.
Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I need to leave Mataji.
Mataji, in which
Okay,
chapter
Mataji.
Krishna
Thank you for
spoke
joining.
about Bhagavad-gita? Is that right? I can't hear you. Tell me, Mataji.
Varshana Mataji, please tell.
Yes, Mataji.
I cannot hear at all.
Mataji asked this question.
Acha, Varshana
that-
Mataji, since you know that, can you do a favor? Can you post the question in the WhatsApp group?
In which chapter Krishna spoke about?
Don't be in a hurry. She will do that right after this class is over. Okay? She will post that question in the WhatsApp group so that it is there. And then you can, it'll there for you, Vindavali Mataji, right?
Okay.
And then you can read the question nicely, do your research work, and then you can give the answer. And that homework is for everybody. So that way we have also documented that. Okay, so you don't have to rely on that you're not able to hear. Then.
Okay, Varshana Mataji, I'll wait for your
There you go.
stay.
You'll do it. You'll do it. You can do it. You can put the question there on WhatsApp group. She's frozen. I didn't mean to do that to all of you.
What happened?
Network issue. Okay. So on that, how about Vindavali Mataji? You go to the WhatsApp group and just remind Varshana Mataji to post the question. Then she will post it because she seems to be frozen right now. Some internet issue with her. Okay. So on that happy or distressful note, we'll call it a day here. We'll continue our reading on Sunday. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Shrimati Vaisheshikada Sadhikariti Namine Nama Pashashilaya Prabhupadam Sanine Anangatya Tasmai Shastabhadin Chudine Vanchikalpatrubhyacha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam
Anam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah.
Premanande